We've looked at the federal landscape, the wins, the roadblocks, and what's still in motion. Now we're turning to state laws and how they're already impacting recyclers on the ground.
You're going to love this. You can only purchase one catalytic converter per day per business.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's going
That's
to
rough.
completely shut down the industry. It's overregulation.
The law enforcement went to the state, they cried uncle.
We don't look good in stripes.
Prices have gone down, and that's why we've seen this massive shift over to copper
They're
theft.
expecting, $930, $950 platinum palladium with some spikes and 5,000 rhodium. I think some of the hoarders have to realize that this is the new normal. Let's go.
Their constituents are pushing that the VIN is going to be the responsible voice of how we're going to deter theft.
There's 900 million converters without VIN numbers in the marketplace.
Right.
What's going to happen with those?
And just when you think it couldn't get more complicated, the biggest disruption, well, it might still be ahead.
I had an idea last year that given the prices going down, that we weren't going to see as much state legislation in the 2025 session. I was wrong, pleasantly wrong. It was crazy. There have been a lot of bills that have come out around the states. I want to say there's at least 50 that had come out, but a lot of sessions have ended. A lot of those bills did not pass, which is a good thing. But we have seen, like Ohio, for instance, this one is pretty interesting. They passed a catalytic converter bill probably 2 years ago. It made it a little bit more strict, but you still saw those business-to-business exemptions. Here we are this session, 2025. They have a new bill coming out, and they are removing those business-to-business exemptions. And by doing so, and I don't know if they're aware that this has occurred, I'm hoping not, but we're going to be pushing stuff for it, is on the individual. So basically if we were purchasing from an individual, which a lot of us don't do, but if we were, those same record-keeping requirements and reporting requirements are now going to apply for business-to-business entities.
It doesn't work.
And one of those requirements, you're going to love this, you can only purchase one catalytic converter per day per business.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's going
That's
to
rough.
completely shut down the industry in Ohio. No
Like
business is
Minnesota.
going to be just like Minnesota. And it fascinates me that I know legislators are busy. I absolutely understand that they don't have this niche of information that we do, but that's why it's so important for us to look out for these bills and try to make our way in. It's only difficult when you get a legislator, bill sponsor who doesn't want your 2 cents. And so far, I'm hoping with Ohio we can make some better progress with them. But I mean, we've had states like Minnesota and Illinois who they kind of just like shut the door in your face. They don't want to hear it.
I remember talking to you about this once, Becky, that back in the 70s in California, secondhand dealers licensing got tightened up, and they wouldn't allow business-to-business exemption for a gold dealer, a jewelry store, a coin dealer. And so it was kind of a version of what you're discussing here, in that each individual article or item required its own separate document that needed to be filled out and sent in for review at local law enforcement. And they were so inundated in the first 90 days that they cried uncle, and they went to the state. The law enforcement went to the state and they asked to get that exemption placed,
Put back
business
in?
to business.
Hey guys, have you ever wondered if you're leaving money on the table when selling your scrap catalytic converters? Well, we have a solution for you. We have a converter price guide with thousands of part numbers. Just use it, check it out. You can sign up today, have access for it today. See if you are leaving any money on the table, or keep the guy honest that you're selling to. You want to check it out, make sure you're making the most profits for your business in today's market. It's super simple, just click the link below, get started today. Now let's get back to the video.
I mean, we ran into that same issue in California because under California law, you're supposed to report your transactions to your local law enforcement. And so we set it up with local law enforcement, and at first they had no idea what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, well, look at the code. This is what it says for us to do. And they were like, okay, well, how do you want to send it to us? I was like, well, we're going to have a lot of documents. We can email them to you. And after about 4 or 5 weeks, they came back and they said, no,
They don't have the manpower.
We don't
It's
have
a little overwhelming.
Yeah,
for them,
we don't
right?
have anyone looking at this information. Nobody here to review it, even though the law requires them
Right,
to.
right.
And so they said, stop sending your transactions
It doesn't work.
because it's just sitting in our data system,
Right.
and nothing's coming from it.
But what's so cool about my illustration is this was in the 70s before we had personal computers. So it was all handwritten documents put in envelopes and mailed every day. Can you imagine the mail that came in from all the businesses and all the paperwork that stacked up on there? Yeah. Boy, I wish we had that today. That would stop this cold.
Well, see, they thought that we were going to send it on paper, but we said that was a little crazy because it would be a lot of paper. So we asked to email it. They said that was fine. And of course, it turned into this. But I mean, it really just comes down to it's overregulation. I get us wanting to stop theft. We're wanting to, take that part down. But at the same time, if we don't have any enforcement or any manpower behind it to actually do something, the overregulation is pointless. You're just putting all these requirements on us, and there's nobody to do anything. So what we are doing is basically pointless if you don't have somebody dedicated. And luckily in Texas DPS, I mean, they are on it. I mean, I'm still receiving phone calls, and even the Department of Public Safety is having all these ideas. Okay, well, what else can we do to ensure, what we have in law is being done, it's being enforced. But a lot of states don't have the financial power to do that. They just don't have the amount of people that they
have
need.
the budget.
Yeah.
And so
And the crime is down.
And they say that a few states are like, yeah, it's because of our bills. And it's like, no, it's not. It's the prices have gone down, and that's why we've seen this massive shift over to copper theft.
Well,
But it's their bills.
I think there was an organized crime element to a lot of this catalytic converter theft in the past. And I think that there has been some high-profile cases that have come forward that are being investigated, so they've gone silent. They've gone
I've read some
away.
of those cases, and it's like criminals are going to find a way,
Of course.
to circumvent your your custody, your KYC, your compliance efforts.
Right.
You know what I mean? That is the hard thing. I spoke to one recycler who was hit very hard in the Midwest, I think between Illinois and Indiana, with the laws. And they were like, we were already employing 3 people in the office to take in our supplier's name, address, and phone number, everything that we had to do for them. Then we took the same thing, name, address, and phone number of every company or individual that they purchased from. Downstream, 3 people, having to do compliance on their supplier's supplier. So that's, vetting your supplier's supplier.
Yeah, know your
But
customer.
at the same time, it's just like they can't afford to do that. And now with the laws, they cannot transport into the state from across state. And we talked about the laws that govern already interstate commerce
Yeah.
being extremely affected by state legislation that is definitely impeding interstate commerce. So if you don't have a brick and mortar, you can't, take in catalyst from another, from that state. And then, you're going to have recyclers having to bring the catalyst to your brick and mortar. So they cannot go overstate and bring it to Julie. They have to bring it to us. It's really protectionist, and I think it violates interstate commerce.
I do
it
too.
it
I brought that up
absolutely
a year
does.
ago. I
You
said
did.
it does violate interstate commerce.
I mean, in Illinois, for instance, we came into that bill late, but that bill passed fairly quickly. And it basically, because, we have a lot of buyers that go on the road, they go to the different locations to purchase. And in Illinois, you can no longer do that. The auto recyclers are going to have to bring it to your location in order to sell. Our guys most of these people aren't going to do that. They're probably going to wait for somebody coming from out of state who's not following that state law, or law enforcement's not looking at them, who's going to complete that transaction. And even when we spoke to a couple of those organizations about that setup, how we're not going to be able to come to you, they were like, the bill doesn't say that. Yes, it does. It's black and white. It specifically states that. And so even those who are looking at the bill or they're helping draft the bill, they don't realize some of the stuff that they're putting in.
Unintended consequences.
Cause and effect.
Yeah, and there's a lot of companies, IPMI companies, that are just like, we're not going to go to jail for not obeying the law.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Because we're the compliant types, you know what I mean, that are going
Right.
to follow all the letter of the
Definitely.
law, you know, and the spirit of the law, because we don't want to end up in the news. And we don't want to, we don't want to go to jail
No, well,
because we don't look good in stripes.
Well, there's plenty of people that will do that out there, and they're slowly getting weeded out, and we see that.
Mm-hmm.
And they always say the cream rises to the top, right?
If you can hang in with the low prices and the low supply.
Yeah. It's a lot slower than it was 3 years ago. These lower prices.
But a good uptick this week. Let's talk positively.
Yeah.
You know,
I think some of the hoarders have to realize that this is the new normal. Let's go.
the pricing is very good right now. That's all I got to
Historically
say.
excellent. Yeah.
Someone will watch this video in 5 years and wonder what we're talking about.
We're not talking about $600 platinum and palladium
That's right.
and $400 rhodium, right? We're talking
Yeah.
$5,000
Right.
rhodium, and
It's been holding at that price
plus or minus
for a while.
1,000. And I think the panel just said, they're expecting, 930, 950 platinum palladium, with some spikes, and 5,000 rhodium, with some up and down.
That's the new norm.
Yeah, those are great prices.
Yeah, they're good
historically.
prices.
Catch the
During-
price while you can.
During the winter meetings, I gave the presentation and I had the historic rates from probably 1990s all the way up to now. I mean, if you look at the prices we're at now, like you just said, historically, we're still in a good position. It's just, when you have those mega spikes, which mega spike one, people got comfortable. Or those who were just entering into the industry thought that that was going to be the standard. And I feel like a lot of these businesses who have been here for a very long time, you understand, you look at the long term.
16 years between
You understand
$10,000 rhodium
that
and
this is
$30,000.
not sustainable. You need to be betting on something closer down here.
Historic. Look at historic data always.
These are not $50 averages. And our industry is really drawn by the average price that they're getting when you go down to the street level. I mean, they're less, they look at the PGM prices, obviously, on Metals Trade Desk and Kitco and things like that, and they're following and they're getting that information from all of our kind of companies. But I think they're just looking at what am I averaging? And they think, and they've got, even if they bring their average down from that $200 or $300 to like a mythical, $150, where, palladium would have to be over $1,300 or whatever it is. I think they're just like, if they see a slight move in the market, they don't understand its investment demand or jewelry demand moving platinum. So they think that that's a tip. It's about to go. So let me hold a little longer, because it's going to run.
How's that working out?
It won't, but at least that's what the analysts tell us. We're not going to see that. So how many cars? I mean, the amount of cars being produced was just lowered from 17 million to 15 million
Right.
in the U.S.
Right.
That's an indicator of no demand for the PGMs. And it's 65% of the demand of PGMs is auto. So
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So just to round
even
back,
higher for some of the other metals.
just to round back on the issue of VIN numbers, are we saying that it's probably going to remain in the final version of the bill, or is it someone's great hope out there that it may not make it in the final version of the bill? And how likely is that, or is that bill even worth working on beyond removal at that point? What's left?
If the VIN part was taken out of the bill, I think the representatives, the bill sponsors, would back off of it.
Right.
Because it's not something they want to put forth. For them, their constituents are pushing that the VIN is going to be the responsible choice of how we're going to deter theft. And that's still getting pushed despite the theft numbers and how time is moving
And the
forward.
fact there's 900 million converters without VIN numbers in the marketplace.
Right.
What's going to happen with those?
And we can make that argument all day long. We do, but it's hard for people like that to conceptualize that idea. If the VIN part wasn't there, there is no bill. So we are trying to work around it. Even if this does get passed, I do foresee us having, of course, some problems to fix on the back end, as with anything. There's always
Sure.
going to be some positives, but there's going to be some consequences. We're going to have to constantly work with the states and figure out how to move it forward.
Is there a possibility to carve out a grandfather clause for those existing converters on the road that are not marked when they reach end of life to get them into the supply stream?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way
That's going to be our
that you can think
recommendation.
of that we could carve out that they're grandfathered in. Hey, they were made prior to this bill passage, so they can still be entered into the recycling stream. However, all these other ones that are marked with VINs, those have to be reported.
Right. And so I think that's where we're going to have to work with the states as well, is because you do want that grandfathered part in, but then you also have states that are already requiring for the past 2 years that vehicles that are being sold, whether it's used or new, to consumers, that they have to offer to mark the vehicles. Or you have states who have had the VIN marking pilot programs. So there are a lot of cars
But that's
out
not
there.
federal. You're talking about an individual state. So if
But-
that's the law in the state, then of course that's the law in the state.
But that's where the federal, like if we did a grandfather, amendment to this, they're going to have to take into consideration that there are some states that have older vehicles that already have VINs, so the state should still be allowed to do that. I would hope the federal government would be willing to grandfather some of those in, but it's not going to take away that requirement on the state side
Right, of
for
course.
those who have it.
And there is no
But not-
preemption. No preemption. Federal law.
But not all
will not
50 states
preempt
are going to be
the state
willing to
law.
do that.
However, I still wish we could get a preemption just because of the action that we're seeing, like the hindrance of interstate commerce. Obviously, the states are not doing well on regulating this because each state is completely different. There's varying levels of regulations. And I mean, you could have two states side by side. One, you may not even be able to buy a converter in. And the other one, it's a heyday. You can do whatever.
I think the problem is with the PACT committee and with our lobbyists and with us joining with NADA, we do not have to stay in support of the PART Act. We are at the table, which is a wonderful place to be. So we can sound the alarm, but this group of 120 or more organizations is a lot of law enforcement, and it's a lot of district attorneys and towing companies and automotive recyclers and National Association of Automobile Dealers. So
A lot of different interests.
So a lot of different interests, and they are pro VIN marking. They are pro the grant. They have solutions. They want to sell it. And I think law enforcement really does believe that VIN marking is the way to go. And I think, Julie, you know that by experience. You're seeing that law enforcement loves that data, but it could become very onerous. But folks in California are already, like companies like Kaspersky, KBI, and folks in Texas, they've been dealing with the recording aspects for many, many years.
That's right.
Successfully, like yourselves.
That's right.
But I will say, just another thing that we have noticed from the past few years of doing that is, of course, there's going to be administrative errors. People are going to type in the VINs incorrectly. Whenever they get put into the databases, they get put in incorrectly. And I think a solution is running a lot of this through NHTSA. And from my personal experience was, even on a case that I worked on last year, and I was trying to search the vehicle information that had gotten a wreck, and whenever I pulled up the VIN, it was perfectly fine. I start looking at the VIN, and I noticed, the police officer wrote wrote down a letter instead of a number.
You
He
can have
wrote
some
it down
human error
wrong.
involved with all of that.
And so I pulled up that VIN, the fake VIN number, on NHTSA, and all the information was there. So I was like, okay, so you have the same car on here under two different VINs. One's accurate, one's inaccurate, but NHTSA's database wasn't even able to see the difference between
reconcile,
those.
yeah.
And so it's like, this is going
That
to
could be a
be
big problem.
This is going to be massive data
Right.
that I can guarantee we're not going to have anybody on the back end to review it or to enforce it. I mean, we're already seeing that issue.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
We have to decide
Very
if it's a
interesting.
hill we're going to die on. So we've got the traceable forms of payment. We've got the exemption for detached catalytic converters and substrate. Those are wins for us.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So we have to decide whether we can support the PART Act with the VIN marking or not.
Right. Well, this has been great. A lot of wonderful information. Bring people up to
thank
speed on this. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate you both coming.
Thanks
course.
for having us.
Thank you
you.
guys.